everyone. Welcome to Chapbook Chats. My name is Samantha Hendricks, and I'm here at Schuler Books with Dr. Jerry Van Leeuwen. Hi, Jerry. How are you?
I'm very fine, Samantha. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. So, Jerry is one of our Chapbook Press authors, and he published his wonderful book, The Good Life, A Matter of Choice, through us. He's a practicing psychologist and licensed marriage and family therapist, which means he's been very busy. He's got a private practice here in Grand Rapids where he lives with his wife. He's worked as an active therapist for 5 decades, with most of his referrals from both physicians and previous clients. And he founded what was the executive director of the Advisory Center for Teens in West Michigan and taught a course for several years at Aquinas called Taking Charge of Your Life. I feel like everyone could use that course right about now there, Jerry. Are you ready? Let's talk about your book. All right. The Good Life, A Matter of Choice. What brought you to writing this? You were telling me a pretty awesome story before.
Well, Samantha, over the course of my journey and my practice, and it kind of goes back before that. I was also a medic in Korea, and so I got to see some activity there that was very sobering, and then also I was a med tech, so I was at the hospital, had my own medical lab, and this was all while I was working on my my degrees as a psychologist. And then when I finally became employed as a psychologist in the 60s with the Department of Mental Health, dealing with aftercare out of the state hospital, which was through Public Act 54 back in the 70s, and then ultimately going into private practice in 1975. But each particular experience got me more and more to understand that, we are born and we die, and the time here is indeterminate. That we basically don't have any particular guarantees, but what we do have is the ability every day to empower ourselves to really challenge our private conversation, our private critic that is never usually very good to us, and basically to understand that we are in control and empowered to make sure that we are in charge of our emotional credit card, that we do not give that out to anyone or anything, so that at the end of the day, even though 14, 24, or 44 things don't go right, we have the ability and the empowerment to make sure it was a good trade of our life. Why? Because the only time we have right now is right now. Now, tomorrow, obviously, if we get up, we have tomorrow, and hopefully we make a lot of plans. But the fact remains is that what I found when I was at the hospital and when I'm dealing with my patients, basically my clients, that very fact is I see so many that are terminally ill, and I'm talking about very young people in their 30s and 40s, as well as 50s and 60s. And the most important thing I've heard over and over is, gee, doc, if I knew this was going to happen, would I ever live my life differently? And that seems to be resonant with most every individual that I talk to, that basically we all look because we feel this sense of immortality. Yeah, someday we're going to get sick and die. Someday we're going to get old and die. But that someday could be at any time. That's why it makes it so much more important, I feel, to be able to realize at the end of the day that I don't regret the price I paid for today, because it may not continue tomorrow. If it does, great, bonus. But if it doesn't, I want to make sure that I've embraced the day to the best of my ability, and I have not allowed myself to make poor choices or to believe a private conversation with no validation. And that's what so many of us do. Well, I'm stupid, or I don't measure up, or I'm not going to succeed. I remember what Thomas Edison said in his autobiography, which I thought was most profound. He said, "In my life, I have never failed. I've just found 10,000 ways it didn't work." And that's what it's about. Taking risk and gratifying needs. It was Epictetus back in 100 AD that said people are not disturbed by things, but by the view in which they take of them. Wow, 2,000 years ago, and we've learned very little. The fact that I'm responsible for my upsetness. Oh, somebody else can influence me, but I can either say, gee, it's too bad you're having a bad day, or, oh my goodness, I feel awful. It's still what I do with it. So in the book, I tried to, from the cradle to the grave, and along the way, is try to give, I think, some insight, some sense of empowerment, and to basically, afford an individual to realize that, they have that power, they have the ability and the capability, to deal with any of these situations, that are within their control in a healthy way, so that at the end of the day, yes, they too will basically have made a good choice, and therefore will have a better life. And so that's why I've really developed it. About half of the book is also on relationships, because I have found that, in our society, the impairment or difficulty in relationships go a long ways to create individuals to have an impaired life of quality. And so I've done a lot of discussion in my book as well as to how to really enhance the quality of life, how to have the healthiest relationship, because that in itself will create a more gratifying time while we're here. And so that's kind of a thumbnail sketch about why I wrote it, and why I had, certainly was enticed to write it, and why I'm in the process right now, which I said I never would, of writing another book called Now. But but it's all about today, and that's what's important. And so that's kind of it in a thumb in a nutshell. So
I love that. So in the book, there is a list of Dr. Jerry's rules. Do you want to talk about those a little bit?
well, I think, in terms of the rules, I think they're all pretty self-explanatory about, a couple of the rules. There's like about, I think 11 in there, but some of them are, certainly one in particular is don't try to go for the gold. Be satisfied with the bronze, because most of us will realize that, there is nothing in our ability that we have to be perfect. We all have a 20% mess up factor. Some days we get 1%, some days we get all 20, but that's life. And that's what causes a lot of people a great deal of difficulty, that if they don't achieve the very best, then they really feel like they failed, or they're upset, or it's been a bad day. And the most important thing is they tried. And that's what we're talking about. It's just getting up, being the best Jerry or Samantha we can be, not letting anyone or anything interfere with the quality of our life. That's important. And we have that control, nobody else. And so those are some of the rules. And basically, we're talking about rules to, maintain good balance in our life. And that's part of the problem, that basically it's kind of like a icon that I have. In fact, LaRoche had written it out. She's written many books, but one of the icons that she had, which basically I buy into 100%, it shows this icon of a tombstone, and it says, got everything done, died anyway. Well, I think that's really true. You want to make sure that that's going to happen, but make sure you have balance, that you enjoy your significant others, you enjoy your kids, that you enjoy just going for a walk, or appreciating the fact that, God, I've got good health today. I want to make sure that I embrace it. I like it, instead of just taking things for granted. And that's some of the rules, is appreciate the reality of what is, and quit getting obsessant about what isn't or what may be. And that's kind of another area of the rules that we find. But there's several others that are orchestrated throughout the book. And I have bookmarks, and posters that go with those rules too. And I might say that my granddaughter, one of my grandkids, but my granddaughter, who's also an artist, in fact, she just got accepted to Columbia in Illinois.
Oh,
She did
wow.
the icons for me, and I'm really, really appreciative. It sort of was a family affair with the editing, and the front cover of my book was done by my oldest daughter, who's a graphic artist. So uh, that means a lot to me because so many of the people that are the most important people in my life had a part in that. So that's good.
I love that. Now, for someone that wants to start on this process of living a very deliberate and intentional life, where's a good place to start?
Well, I think the first thing is to find out, what it is that you feel is interfering with you, the individual, at the end of the day, saying, this was a good trade of my day. I think, well, I'm having problems maybe with a parent, or I'm having problems with my spouse or my significant other, or I'm not sure that I'm handling, my parenting very well, or I'm having a lot of stress at work, or I don't have any friends, or I don't seem to ever have much fun. Anything that they find, that's the starting point. What evidence do I have at that particular time that I can't change that? Because there's all kinds of ways of really empowering yourself to make a difference. When people say to me, well, I don't have any friends. Well, what are you doing to make a friend? What are you doing to make any acquaintances? Well, I don't have any. So we look at any number of opportunities, and before you know it, the person says, well, gee, I've joined a golf league, or I'm going out and I've joined a walking group, or there's so many ways to do that. Well, our marriage, basically, which you figure over 55% of marriages are ending up in divorce, we know that we're really in trouble, because realistically, whoever taught you or I how to have a relationship? I mean, we've had more training to drive an automobile than the most important event in our life. And that's one of the things, because instead of feeling that our relationship is impaired, or it's not working, or I wish it were better, just take the time to understand, how do we unconditionally commit to each other? How do we make our relationship a priority? How do we make the other person feel special? Well, if we don't talk to each other communicatively, it isn't going to happen. Einstein said it very well. He said, we cannot solve a problem today with the same consciousness that created it. And that's what most everybody tries to do. We need to think outside the box. We need to walk down a different street. And hopefully that is one of the things that at least my book hopefully would entice somebody to do, to look at thinking outside the box, walking down a different street, and trying things differently than perhaps what they've tried. So
When we were talking before, and I had asked you where the idea for this book came from, you mentioned your legacy. So what does it mean to you to write this book?
well, when I was thinking about it, what I really felt, I've spent a lot of time in my profession, and I think I grew up with an awful lot of warts and problems myself. And I know that my life, okay, would have had more quality to it early on had I had an opportunity to have a roadmap in which to direct me in a healthier way. But I didn't. I certainly did as I grew, through my years. But what I'm hoping is that this is sort of like a roadmap on a life journey, how to have a quality journey for however long we're here, so that we don't regret the time we spent, and we don't go to our last breathing exercise regretting the things that we could have done different or we could have changed. That's basically, and if somebody, one person, okay, basically picks up the book and has more quality to the life, then that has been my legacy. That has been my joy.
I love it. And now you are writing a book called Now. When do you expect that to hit shelves, and
Well,
what's the
like I
plan
said
for that?
before, Samantha, I never intended to write the first one. And when I wrote that one, after all that time, I said, more than likely, the chances are whether or not I will still be around to finish it, but I'm hoping to get that done by, no later than summer. And that's the next one, but I will guarantee you it will be the last one. But it's been a joy. And I think what I also find is that in writing the book, it has helped me to not only be a better me, a better partner to my spouse of over 55 years, a better father and a grandfather, okay, but certainly a much better therapist. I'm so much better today as a therapist than I was 10, 15, 20, or 30 years ago because I'm so much more insightful about what works. And that's what I've tried to orchestrate in my writings. These are things not that I think are going to work. I know they're going to work. And my folks that I have dealt with over the years come back and I know it works because I get that feedback. So that's what I'm saying. That's my legacy.
I love it. Well, everyone, thank you so much, Dr. Jerry Van Leeuwen, for joining me today on Chapbook Chats. Don't forget to pick up your copy of The Good Life, A Matter of Choice here at Schuler Books from our very own Chapbook Press. Thank you, Dr. Jerry.
Thank you, Samantha, and have a wonderful, safe trip.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.